Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, I have ordered our long-range missiles to stand down from their alert. Only that part of our defense that has a chance of shooting down your bomber is still active. Do not think we have much of a chance.
I know.
And yet, this was nobody's fault.
I don't agree.
No human being did wrong. No one is to be blamed.
We're to blame, both of us. We let our machines get out of hand. Today we had a taste of the future. Do we learn from it, or do we go on the way we have?
On course, sir.
Down from 10, give me the signal. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark.
What do we do, Mr. Chairman? What do we say to the dead?
The sky is very bright. All lit up.
When Trump sealed up Cheyenne Mountain, which is the core of our missile defense system, everybody in there has a Q clearance. They locked all of those systems in a continuity of government operation to the NORAD side of continuity in government, which goes back to 54 and the beginning of the nuclear age, versus SES, which happened under Carter with the Inspector Generals and the SES 78 and 79, those two executive orders that hijacked control of the country. Think about that under the auspices of continuity in government. 9/11 happened, Paradise and Palisades fires, Maui, and 100 other fires that you haven't heard the name of, where very advanced military weapons were used.
So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about.
This is what I know for sure from people who are legitimate in these programs and are still current in them, okay? That we're about to make a 500-year technological leap in less than 20 years.
2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened.
When belief reaches a critical mass, it becomes reality. And that is what we are going through right now, is people waking up to the idea that this is true, this is real.
No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess.
They have quantum computers, but the things that they're utilizing are so large. Think about the UNIVAC back in 1953 that took up 2 stories of a skyscraper. That's the idea of what they're utilizing right now. They haven't miniaturized this and gotten to the point where it's commercialized and they can implement it. Well, guess what? We're there. And we're about to start rolling out this technology over the next 20 years, but at the same time, building out the infrastructure and aligning the rollout of that technology in sequence with it. The first step is within 5 years, you, me, and everybody else here will be able to pay $500 to $1,000 and we'll be able to go to the moon.
Let me just make sure that I understand you correctly, Commander. A group of cybernetic creatures from the future have traveled back through time to enslave the human race. And you're here to stop them?
That's right.
Hot damn. You're heroic.
We're in a position to do things that nobody else has ever even thought of before. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time. In our hands are technologies. I mean, they couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today.
Conduct your warp flight tomorrow morning, just as you planned.
Why tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning, when they detect the warp signature from your ship and realize that humans have discovered how to travel faster than light, they decide to alter their course. They make first contact with Earth, right here.
Here?
Actually, over there.
It is one of the pivotal moments in human history, Doctor. You get to make first contact with an alien race, and after you do, everything begins to change.
Your theories on warp drive allow fleets of starships to be built, and mankind to start exploring the galaxy.
It unites humanity in a way that no one ever thought possible when they realize they're not alone in the universe. Poverty, disease, war, they'll all be gone within the next 50 years.
This is probably 5 or 6 years worth of research that I've done myself on Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was involved in massive funding and financing of genetic data mining companies. This is the Southern Trust Company. This is the New Albany Company. This links to, if you guys have heard of a woman by the name of Regina Dugan, who was the head of DARPA. She was the head of Factory 8 over at Google. She's also the head right now of the Wellcome Leap Foundation. This is the Wellcome Years. You have 23andMe as a data honeypotting operation operated by Google and other various different organizations. And what were they doing? Is they were collecting genetic information pertaining to little children and feeding it into artificial intelligence. Well, what did Google just release recently? Alpha Genome, where you can go in there and input your DNA and designer humans. You can make yourself taller, give yourself a brand new longer PP if you want to. You can do anything you want. And here's the thing is, this work that they're doing and putting into that AI was laid down by people like Jeffrey Epstein. The reason being is because it was illegal.
So they are paying attention, and they're waiting for us to wake up, I think. They can't do it all themselves. And they're trying to expose as much as they can, and they're going, okay. And that's the same thing with the Jeffrey Epstein files. The child trafficking, the, sex stuff, they've been doing that for thousands of years. It's not anything new to these people. And they'll use it against each other to keep everybody online, because that's not anything what Jeffrey Epstein was about. He was funding a lot of different things. The transhumanism. Yep. That's where we really need to be looking at right now, because this is a very, very massive threat to humanity right now.
What's the occasion?
Let's just say it's our anniversary.
Is it?
No, but let's just say that it is. Okay? Happy anniversary.
An emanator. Thank you.
Honey, you can go anywhere you want in the world now. Where do you want to go first?
I'm so happy when I'm with you.
You don't have to say that.
The dig's come through. We have a new lead. Get down here.
How do you perfect the level of technology in order to do that? You have to have some testing place to do it. Well, this is why they used autonomous zones. Ukraine and Venezuela. No international oversight, no set of laws and rules. This is why you have biolabs spread throughout each one of these countries. The big biopharma companies go in there with military defense contracts. They go in there, they feed DNA information and AI into them. If they brought any of us guys in there that genetically modify us, there's some big problems because we have iterative DNA. Our DNA is highly oxidized over time and damaged. You can't go in there and modify our DNA to get precise results. But children's DNA is very, very purified. Where are the 8 million kids going? They're going into genetic experimentation in underground military complexes and most likely autonomous countries like Venezuela and Ukraine. This is what Russia was doing when they're going through the tunnels in Ukraine, is they were clearing out these biomedical experiments that were being done for hybridization, chimerization, genetic modification of human beings by utilizing the children. So Epstein was a procurer of children for genetic experimentation and manipulation. And this is the big secret, because here's the thing, is the DOD was directly involved.
2012 Olympics. Queen Mother, Daniel Craig, comes over to Windsor Castle, waits for the Queen, escorts her out to the royal helicopter. She gets in the helicopter. They fly off. They do a tour of all the statuary and symbology across London. They laugh at us because we don't see they're cloaked, they're camouflaged, the reptilians walking amongst us. They look human, but their DNA, as far as they're concerned, is shared, some tincture of it, with Cain himself, with their father, the devil. They believe that. Doesn't matter where you believe it. They believe it. They get to the great big huge Olympic Stadium. The helicopter flies over, flashing green and red lights. It's hovering. They're waiting for it to descend and land in the middle of the stadium and the Queen to get up. All of a sudden, she jumps from the helicopter with Daniel Craig accompanying her. She falls to Earth, mimicking the people that she believes she's a descendant of. All of the royals believe that they're descendants of Cain. They're the Cains of the earth. So now let me start to bring this, that have worked methodically over generations, over millennium, to get into positions of power. It's not different groups. They're the same families hidden. And they love the story of the phoenix, that about every 500 years takes and builds a pyre, a sacrificial altar, and then burns himself up in the sacrificial altar, completely consumed. Yet there's an egg that's left. And after the fire, born through the fire, the next phoenix arises. If you look at their symbology, you think it's an eagle. It's not. It's a phoenix. Because they keep reinventing themselves. Same families, different name. You think it's a different group? No, Romans, Babylonians, the guys at Jericho, whatever. They still are the same crowd. They believe that they're descendants all the way back to Cain. The city of Baal at the base of Mount Hermon had gateways or doorways you could come through, and they were archways. And so we know that because one of them was preserved. Baal was destroyed by the humans at some point in time. Specifically there in Baal, what were they practicing? Child sacrifice. If you brought a child to these aliens, they could sacrifice it. And by the way, within the scriptures, what do they do with the meat from the sacrifices brought to the temple for offerings? They eat it. The priests eat it. So it's a reasonable thing to assume, and there is writings that back this up, that apparently after the children were brought for a sacrifice, these Baal priests would eat the children. And so he challenges the priests of Baal, and he says, on their turf, they always like to be on the tops of the mountains. Frequency, there's some stuff there, but it's also because they were cast down out of heaven. Why do they want to be in the high places? When you go to cities and you look for demonic architecture of things that are going on, the demons like the highest place in the city. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of darkness in high places. And there's physically high, which they like, but there's also politically high. There's also business high, science high. But it was on the top of the mountain. It was at the power point of the energy grid, if you will, or the demonic, where these guys had carefully put their altar at the top of the hill, and they're having people bring their children and sacrifice them to Baal, Moloch. In Israel? Yeah, they're totally mentally captured. Can you imagine how baked and twisted you would have to be as a society to allow that to happen, and then in a highly visible place where everybody can see what's going on, but the practice is still going on there in the land. This is still in the same region. Think of all the people who had sacrificed their own children. They were all up there, the priests of Baal who had received their children. They'd take it over and they would put it in these great brass arms of this Moloch Baal idol. And it had doors on the stomach that would open out, and the arms were on wires or cables. They'd place the child in these red hot arms, and then it would roll into the belly of this Baal idol Moloch shaped like a bull. But then realize also when it was done, if they were practicing the way that the Israelites were doing with the temple and all that, with their sacrifices, the priests were eating the bodies of these children after they were sacrificed. That was the practice. So when we think about this, the people saw this great spectacle. I thought I was getting favor with God. I was doing what God wanted. I was giving their own children for a sacrifice. They were so upset that they turned on the priests of Baal and killed every one of them. Now, it's just, they walked over, they killed. No. There was a fight like you can't believe, I'm sure. And they turned on every one of them, chased them down the hill, and they killed every one. And then a little later, the king went ahead and did a special little thing and killed off the rest of the priests of Baal too, in a very big, dramatic moment. It was so dramatic that the whole country, that whole part of the world, completely flipped on the priests of Baal, hunted them down, destroyed them all. Imagine those priests of Baal. What were they like? What was our enemy like? So the whole land was corrupt. We're at that kind of a moment for us as a society. The most important first real shot across the bow that's going to hit armor, go through a deck plate, in at the waterline, is what Trump's about to do with this emergency executive order. This is the one that hits them in really core places. If you get an honest election, they're toast.
Огонь!
What we consider evolution in the scientific community, Darwinian evolution, is absolute nonsense. Okay? What you have is, it's called adaptation. And you have spurts of evolution that happen in very, very short time frames, 10, 20 years or 20 to 100-year time frames. They don't happen over millions of years very, very slowly. Absolute nonsense. Mm-hmm. We have various different galactic cycles that ancient civilizations tried to tell us about and keep the knowledge of. Now, do you guys know what an analemma is? If you watch the sun every day for 365 days from your kitchen window and you put a dot on your window at noon every day, the sun would actually make a figure 8 in the sky. That figure 8 is called an analemma. If you watch the moon over its 28 and a half day cycle, it forms a figure 8 really elongated across the sky. This is kind of a stationary perspective of rotational motion around each other. If you were to take an outside glance at the galaxy and watch our solar system moving through the galactic arm, well, it does a figure 8. Within that figure 8 motion, at the top, we have a solstice. At the bottom, we have the solstice. In the middle, we have 2 equinoxes. Equinox means means equal. At the top, the solstices mean to stand still. These are our seasons. You have summer, you have winter, and then you have spring and fall. Okay? Now, our galactic transit, when we go through the galactic arm, actually is like seasons. Now, I want people to think about this because this is actually legitimized scientific evidence. I had an NYU professor on my show that sat here and described exactly this to me. That number one is the polarity of the galactic arm, the Orion arm that we are in, has different polarity, a positive and a negative polarity. Not only that is that our solar system actually bobbles up and down between the galactic plane of that arm. Like this. So it goes through positive polarity and negative polarity. But also, think about all the cosmic dust and cosmic particles and gases that are in there. They're going to be closer concentrated towards the center of that galactic arm. They're going to be more distributed on the outskirts, which means that when you're at winter, you're at a very low energy, very low density, negative ionization. When you come to the middle, you're in a very chaotic time period. When you're at the top, you're in a very positive, low density time frame. Well, we just made that transit back upward towards that positive polarity and towards those higher density areas. And typically what happens is this produces epigenetic control factors onto our body. You have increases in cosmic bombardment, cosmic radiation that increases into our solar system. This is why we're in a solar maximum of 144 years, a super solar maximum. And this is why the sun's energy is putting out massive amounts of solar flares to fend off from the cosmic bombardment. But when that cosmic bombardment comes in on the solar maximum, it changes the landscape of our planet. You actually have more clouds that come about. It starts to change the environment, but it also charges the electromagnetic plasma domain of our solar system increasingly more, which then changes what? The subtle energy fields that affect you, me, and our DNA, producing small spurts of evolution in and around this time frame. This is why we are in this chaotic revolutionary time period, because it is quite literally on the calendar. Evolution was built into the universe itself.
I understand that he experimented on human beings.
Twins.
What exactly do you mean when you say the boys you saw were more than twins?
Not only did they look alike, but they were also very alike in personality.
That is unusual. Studies show that twins who are separated at birth develop totally different personalities.
But these twins were like the same people, but brought up with different languages.
It's impossible, of course.
Excuse me, Doctor, but what is impossible?
Mononuclear reproduction.
Oh, Doctor.
Cloning. What if I were to tell you that I could take a scraping of skin from your finger and create another Ezra Lieberman?
I would tell you not to waste your time or my finger.
Anyway, that is cloning. It was first done with plants. A cutting taken from a plant and transplanted grew to be the exact duplicate of the donor plant. Now we are doing the same thing with laboratory animals. We then implant the nucleus of the donor cell, which could be taken from a blood sample or even a skin scraping. That cell, with its genetic material intact, eventually becomes an embryo and is born as a living creature.
Without parents?
Well, it has no father because the egg was never fertilized, no mother because its genetic code comes from another being. Can you follow that?
And this creature is an exact duplicate of itself? Oh, Doctor, how can that be?
Come along. Here we are removing the eggs of a white rabbit from the fallopian tubes. The next step is to destroy the egg nucleus with ultraviolet light so that none of its genetic makeup remains. Now you see an egg from a white rabbit ready to be injected with the blood cell from a black rabbit donor. With the injection pipette, one of the blood cells is sucked up and then injected into the egg. After a few hours, the eggs in culture divide and are ready to be put back into the female.
And this can be done with humans?
If the surgical technique were precise enough.
It's monstrous, Doctor.
Why? Wouldn't you want to live in a world full of Mozarts and Picassos? Of course, it's only a dream. Not only would you have to reproduce the genetic code of the donor, but the environmental background as well. Let's examine the family background of the donor. Father is 65 years old, a civil servant. Mother is 42, you said. She dotes on the child. The boy is pale, dark hair, blue eyes, spoiled. Right?
Dr. Büttner, the one who is cloned, the donor, he has to be alive, doesn't he?
Not necessarily. Individual cells taken from a donor can be preserved indefinitely. With a sample of Mozart's blood and a woman, someone with the skill and the equipment could breed a few hundred baby Mozarts. My God, if it's really been done, what I'd give to see one of those boys.
the movie Boys from Brazil. They're doing cloning work. Jeffrey Epstein wanted to like have 20 of these girls, teenagers, that they were going to impregnate, and then take those offspring and create this super race. They've been doing this for a long time. The Nazis tried it. They're still trying it. The Nazis have it. They didn't go away. They don't stop. They're like a machine. They've won so many times, when everything was like not going in their direction. And so they just keep coming. They keep coming. We can take them down. We can talk about how we're going to take them down the streets of, military tribunals and all that kind of stuff, but they're still going to keep coming. They're still going to keep doing these things. It's insane when you look at it. And a lot of people, in other shows, they're like, we can't, people can't handle this. Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Because their consciousness is rising I can't believe how many people are comprehending the stuff that I'm putting out now. And I just keep, okay, they got it. Let's go to the next level. Let's do the next level. And like Josh is talking about, we have been talking about, we keep pushing the envelope hard and harder and harder. And people absorb it. They're like, give us more, give us more. I'm like, this bullshit about, they can't handle it is complete nonsense.
There, gentlemen.
What's that? What's happening there? A statue. That's Altera.
Simply a three-dimensional image, Commander.
But it's alive.
Because my daughter is alive in my brain from microsecond to microsecond while I manipulate. There.
One of the greatest science fiction writers that ever lived was also one of the most prolific biblical scholars that ever lived. And it was his conclusion that we're living in a great big huge junkyard across our solar system, that there was humanoid life here in this part of our solar system. Not human because it wasn't descendants of Adam, but there was some kind of humanoid version, and in the course of some war, catastrophe, whatever, that's where these 200 came from. They fell to Earth.